Good morning, everybody. Get everybody in the room. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Morning, good morning. Come on, waiting room. Hopefully everybody's having a great Wednesday. I'm already on my second cup of coffee. We're just waiting for everybody to get in from the waiting room so we can get started. Maybe. Good morning. All right. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. We're going to go ahead and get started. The waiting room seems to be slowly emptying. I'm not sure what's taking it so long. Maybe it's just connections for everybody else. I'm not sure. But good morning. We're very glad to have everybody with us this morning. Just the regular housekeeping. If you're on YouTube joining us, then feel free to, if you're live, you can chat your comments, questions in via the chat. If you're with us here on the Zoom call, same. Go ahead and chat your questions in. If it's after the fact, you can submit them via auxiliary connections. That's auxiliary.uga.edu. Select the auxiliary connections tab and then survey and feedback. You can leave it anonymously or you can leave your name. We're not going to, what we're going to do this morning is the four of us are going to go through through our different parts of the system, and then we're going to do questions at the end. So chat your questions in, but don't be offended if we wait till the end to capture them all, but type them in as you think of them, because that'll be the best to help us when we go back. So with no further ado, I will share my screen. And go. All right. So navigating OneUSG Connect. So what is OneUSG? So OneUSG, I pulled the definition directly from the USG website, and it is the system-wide initiative to develop and implement streamlined policies and technology solutions that benefit the University System of Georgia. University System of Georgia is forgive the analogy, but I think of it as our mothership. That is the umbrella of all of the sister schools. There are governing groups. So the first priority for the OneUSG initiative is to bring all institutions into one technology solution, aka OneUSG Connect, to manage the USG human resources activities, benefits, and compensation. So what that really means is we went from a system of connected, but not really, disconnected systems that we, all of the different homegrown systems that we had, they all just kind of floated out in their own realm. And eventually the way that they communicated with each other was by an action. There had to be a physical action that was done, initiated to in that specific system to bring the information over. We went from this disconnected system to a connected system. Integrated is both a blessing and a curse. It's nice because once it's done, it's done for all the way across. You don't have to, the redundancy aspect is taken out a lot. The curse of that is the fail safes between here and there. If there's an error that is caught, if you've got 5 steps and you find out in step 3 that there's an error, you know, in the old way of thinking, we could stop at step 3 and recorrect and then and move forward. Now, once it goes from step 1, it's a domino effect. So because I'm a visual person, I have to think about an anthill. So when my oldest was little, he had an ant farm. I think I loved that ant farm more than he did. But it was very fascinating to me because at the top, you know, and if you walk outside, you see the anthill. It's just across the surface. It just looks like a pile of dirt. But underneath, all of it is integrated in that it all connects in a way. So that's one of the ways that I think about OneUSG Connect, because it's all interconnected. You may not see all of the moving parts. You see as just the maybe 1 or 2 things that you do in the system as an employee or as a manager. You may see that as that may be the one step that you do in there. But there's so many different cavities and things that are taking place under the surface that you don't see. So the integrated system, an integrated system just means that it's all the parts, all the separate parts connected and functioning as one. And in the center of that is you as the employee. And I know that listening in, we have across the board of where you are as an employee, a manager, a supervisor, a director, or AVP even. All of those have you as an employee. At the base of all of that is you as the employee. The 3 functional parts, if we break it down, we could break down our functional parts into so many, and we would need a full 2 or 3 days of Zoom call to do that. Nobody wants to hear all that. That's way too much. So we've broken it down into, and there's really 3 functional parts of the integrated system. That is the position. Everybody has a position, and we're going to, the team is going to talk about each of these different functions. But you have the position, the posting and the hiring proposal, and the payroll. Those are the three big parts of OneUSG Connect that really affects you as the employee as far as we're concerned. And like I said, under the surface, there's a whole lot of that. Even the one position button, you'll see that could be 10, 15 different sub dots of its own, but you don't, we won't go into all that. So what I'll say is that I can hear, and I have heard when we hear, so what? What's the big deal? It's just one little change. We just need to change one thing about something once it's live in the system. And again, because I'm visual, the ripple effect of it's ripples, dominoes, it's all of the above. Anytime you make a change to one piece of any of part of a person's record, any employee record, it triggers a ripple effect or domino effect that is very time consuming. And you'll see here in just a minute, you'll see what exactly goes into all of those parts. So, so that hopefully as we're navigating through, you'll see why when we hear, well, why can't we just change this one thing? Or when we say, no, that's not really possible, that it'll make a little bit more sense, hopefully. So with that, I'm going to come back. I believe Shaquavia is up next. Shaquavia is going to talk about the positions. Shaquavia?
All right. Gonna put up the slides.
Oh, yes. Hang on. Hang on. I ended my share screen and didn't mean to just yet. Okay.
All right. Good morning, everyone. As Kathryn has discussed, all of these systems are connected as one. And that common link between all systems is each individual employee. We are all given position numbers, which is a unique identifier for each position in UGA Jobs. Positions are often referred to as seats. And I am going to discuss with you what happens when we need more seats and what happens when someone leaves a seat. Next slide, Kathryn. Kathryn, you can go to the next slide.
I'm glad I did.
Okay. When a unit identifies the need for additional staff, they submit requests to auxiliary HR to create a new or multiple positions. This request begins the internal workflow process for creating a position. After the new position moves through the internal auxiliary workflow, it is sent to Central HR for review. If all conditions are met, Central HR will approve the request, and auxiliary HR will notify the unit of the approval. The unit can choose to either post the position for recruitment or hold for a later date. Next slide. When a unit experiences a vacancy of a position where the employee currently seated resigns or retires, the unit identifies the need to fill a seat. Similar to creating a new position, but there is a difference. The position already exists. The content of the position may need changes. When a unit submits the request to fill a vacant position, it is up to the auxiliary HR position management group to determine if the position content needs to be evaluated, modified, or it can just be posted. It is easy to think of the term as evaluate as major changes to the position description and the term modify as minor changes. Best case scenario is that no changes are needed and we can just post the position. But if the vacant position requires changes either by evaluation or modification, we then go through a process similar to creating a new position where we submit the position through the workflow. And once all conditions have been met and the position is approved, we notify the unit. Next slide. For any unit that has gone through this process, the main question that we receive is, what's the holdup? I'm happy to share that with you all this morning. Position management is a tedious task, and this image illustrates the internal auxiliary HR workflow for creating and evaluating a position. Step 1 through 4 are conducted by auxiliary HR. Step 5 is conducted by central HR. But what is not included is what I call step 0. For us, step 0 begins with the unit. When you all identify the need and provide documentation and justification for your request, that is the real start of the workflow. At any point along this workflow, a delay can happen, and those delays are usually a result of invalid justification, supplemental material errors, typos, additional information requested, new additions to the position description, request to fill denied, classification error, and compensation reviews, like the new critical hire process. All of these delays can hold up the creation of a new position or evaluating a current position. On the bright side, for positions that typically hire multiples, like food service workers or bus operators, you will likely never see a delay because of their uniformity, although they go through the same workflow. We strive as a unit to ensure that we work through the potential delays before the position reaches step 5. And a different set of eyes at each level gives us added assurance that Central HR will accept the position. Next slide. As mentioned on the previous slide, delays can happen at any stage, and the same delays that can happen internally with auxiliary HR can also happen at the central HR level. If a delay results in a denial of a position request, the position is sent back through the workflow. The image on the slide provided by central HR are the typical wait times for each type of request. These standard timeframes are extended if central HR requires additional information. Central HR approval process also moves through a workflow. The important thing to note here about time and delays is that your request goes through 2 different workflows. Both are tedious review processes, and if we do not have all of our boxes checked internally, the process slows down. Next slide. Well, let's say we are in the perfect position request or position evaluate scenario, and the position is approved. Well, what next? Most units will request to post the position. Posting the position and creating the position are 2 completely different processes, but they both go through an internal workflow with auxiliary HR and an external workflow with central HR. But don't panic. After a position is approved or did not require an evaluation or modification, processing a posting request takes 1 to 2 business days to process both internally and externally. Typically, any delays experienced during this time can be corrected by a phone call or email to central HR. We typically start as soon as we receive notifications that the position has been approved. The unit is notified of the approval, and you can begin the recruitment and hiring process. I'll now turn things over to Julia to discuss hiring.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Like Shaquavia said, I'm going to discuss the hiring process. Let me get my screen shared. Let's give it a try. Are we good, Kathryn?
We are good.
Okay. So like Shaquavia said, once we have the position and it's posted, and the recruiting process starts, that's when the hiring process begins, and what systems are involved in the hiring process. UGA Jobs, OneUSG Connect, and then within auxiliary, we have very specific internal tracking and documentation systems so that we can follow a hiring proposal and a candidate through the process to make sure that no steps get missed and nothing is incorrect. I made a list of who all is involved in the hiring process. The hiring manager or unit, sometimes that can be different people that are delegated within that unit to help out with the hiring. Auxiliary services, HR, position management team, and recruitment team, which is all 4 of us. The applicant and the candidate obviously are involved. UGA Central HR is also involved, and auxiliary training specialist or their assistant. So what are the steps in the hiring process? Simply put, the hiring manager or unit manager checks UGA Jobs and reviews applicants to their position. After reviewing the applications and holding interviews, the unit submits a hiring request to auxiliary HR. Right now, a lot of units use green sheets. You've heard some mention of team dynamics, ticketing system, which is something that we're hoping to get rolled out in the future for more units to use. The request should include all the information required and a detailed justification for why you want to hire the candidate. The hiring manager and unit informs the selected candidate that they will be receiving a contingency letter and a background check consent via email. So auxiliary HR, after we receive the green sheet and everything, we send the contingency letter via DocuSign to the candidate to the email that they've provided on their application. And then once that's completed, we can begin the hiring proposal. So auxiliary HR begins the hiring proposal in UGA Jobs and submits it to Central HR. Central HR reviews the submitted hiring proposal. They send the candidate the background check and review it once it's completed. They approve the hiring request and they notify auxiliary HR once all the approvals are obtained. UGA HR also adds the candidate to OneUSG Connect and triggers an IDM request for their 810 number. Every employee at UGA has an 810 number. At this step, the candidate is completing the background and investigation information. Once UGA HR notifies auxiliary HR that the candidate is approved, we send out a notification to the hiring manager or the unit that the hiring proposal is approved and that the offer can be extended. At that point, the hiring manager or unit is contacting the individual and letting them know and asking when they would like to begin with us. And the hiring manager then lets auxiliary HR know when the offer is accepted and what the start date will be. From that point, auxiliary HR coordinates with the training specialist and assistant to get the employee scheduled for orientation. All employees go through an orientation before they start in their unit, and Craig Smolinski is responsible for those orientations. We're also requesting their My IDs. We're filling out their parking information, their badge request, completing their I-9s once they go through orientation and bring us their IDs. So these are all the little steps that are happening on the back end that the unit doesn't always necessarily get to see. And then I was going to go over really quickly what can cause delays or issues in the hiring process. Obviously, there's a lot of parts and a lot of moving parts in this this process. So one of the first things that can cause a delay or an issue is incorrect information on the green sheet. That doesn't normally hold us up too much, but we might have to figure out, okay, you put the wrong position, or the candidate put the wrong information, or they work somewhere else on campus and you might not have known that, so it changes their compensation, that kind of thing. If the candidate doesn't complete their contingency letter, either they don't sign into DocuSign to do it, or they give us an incorrect email on their application, so we send it to the wrong email address and they never get it. That can cause a slowdown because usually we don't realize that has happened. If the candidate doesn't complete the background check that Central HR sends them, whether that's they don't provide the information, they never get the email, that can cause a slowdown also. The background check itself, we don't have any control over that process, and central HR uses a third-party vendor to administer those. But if somebody's lived in multiple states, if they have had name changes, you know, if they have things come up during the background check, there can be many different reasons why the background check can take a little bit more time for some people than others. Once auxiliary services HR contacts the unit to let you know that they're approved and you extend the offer, if the candidate takes a long time to respond, we can't move on to the next step in the process until we have their, you know, their acceptance and their start date. If the candidate doesn't complete onboarding, that can slow them down from getting processed into OneUSG and getting paid and getting started. If the candidate misses orientation, which we've had that happen and people have had to reschedule, but obviously that causes a delay for them starting in your unit. So just some things to keep in mind. And usually if you contact us, we can try to help you navigate where they're at and what the holdup might be. So with that said, once we get them through the hiring process, the post-hire and payroll part is Robin. I'll let you talk about that.
If I unmute myself, good morning, everyone. Miss you all. Hope everybody's doing well. For those of you who don't know me, like Julie said, I'm Robin Porter, payroll specialist for auxiliary HR. This morning, I'd like to walk you through a little refresher on the payroll process and the training library. Share my screen with you. Which is not. Hold on one second.
Right, top left corner, Robin.
Gotcha. All right, for any of you who have not used the training library before, it's awesome. It's my safe net. I go to it all the time. It can seem a little confusing when you first get in it, a lot of things to click, and the more you click, the more things open up. But the easiest way, if you've got one thing in particular you're looking for, is the search bar. Say you wanted to look for direct deposit, which is the first thing that needs to be done for a new employee. You would type this in, do your search, and then just look down until you find what you're looking for direct deposit, entering and updating direct deposit information. And you've got 4 different ways that you can go into this, 4 things you can use. See it is going to walk you through the steps. Try it, it's going to let you try, it's going to point you to where you need to go. Do it is just a mock version, it's going to let you actually set up a mock direct deposit. Print it is what I use most often. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to print it, but when you click on that, you're going to get step-by-step instructions. And if you read through this and it still seems like, you know, you're a little bit confused, you can go back and you can actually watch it. Go to the see it, and you'll see exactly what you're going to see on your screen. And it's going to walk through each step to make it a little more clearer for you. I'll let it walk through a couple of steps. I won't let it go through the whole thing. Use the whole thing, but that is the first thing that new employees need to do, and they need to do that the minute their hiring process is approved. They need to set up their direct deposit. This keeps you from having to get a paper check. You know, it depends on how quick you get in there and get that set up, whether or not your first check will be a paper check, and you need to make sure you have the correct address in there for your information so that if your first check is mailed out, it will come to you. But as you can see, it's going to take you through each step. So if just reading the steps didn't make it clear enough, they can always watch that. And then for anything payroll related, If you want anything payroll related, if you go under employee self-serve,
Robin, click your X beside the search bar.
yeah, still got me in the search. So y'all, it can be confusing. I'm still not an expert at it. I'm still not an expert at it. So now, for anything payroll related, if you'll go into OneUSG Connect HR payroll topics, click that X. You go down to employee self-serve. You've got a whole list of things, depending on if you're monthly, biweekly benefited, biweekly non-benefited faculty. And we'll just click on biweekly benefited employees. You've got a whole list of things that new employees need to know. Every employee needs to know, but this is where I would direct my new employees to. You've got everything from showing you how to view your paycheck stub, the direct deposit setups in here. You've got your state withholdings, your federal withholdings, the W-4, viewing your W-2, using PeopleSoft web clock. Everything in here is all employees need to know this information. And it's, you know, while we've got time at home trying to keep busy working for UGA, you could go in and look at all of this and refresh yourself on how to find everything and how to go through those processes. Then I usually try to close whatever I'm in so that everything doesn't get confusing when you go to look at something else. You've even got Kaba clock instructions for Kaba clock users. You can click on this. It's going to take you through a step-by-step on everything you need to know in the Kaba clock. You could, if you've got a new employee coming in that's going to be using Kaba clock, direct them to that. And something a lot of people don't realize, if you're a Kaba clock user, that you can also still view your time card. Everyone needs to be viewing their time card at least once a pay period, towards the end of the pay period. You know, students won't have leave, but full-time employees that have leave, make sure you've entered your leave, make sure everything's being approved for you, all your time is being approved. And everyone has that ability. Even if you're clocking in and out on the Kaba clock, you can still go into employee self-serve and view your time card. You can go into the manager self-serve for supervisors. This is giving you everything from viewing basic information. And you can always take this over if you want to see the whole description. Managing timesheets, approving employees' reports, changing employee schedule if they're pay from schedule. Entering time, excuse me, entering time for a punch time employee as a supervisor. Everything you need to know as a supervisor is in here. Step-by-step instructions. Like I say, you can either view the process, you can go to the print it and just get the step-by-step instructions. Compliance data for supervisors, approving TL compliance data. That's something we've had a lot of lately. We've had a lot of questions coming to me about that. What happens if you don't approve all your employees before payroll run? I don't know, everybody may not be aware, Central does a mass approval, and it's not for leave time. It's not for leave time, it's just for any time you've worked on campus. Whether you've punched in and out or somebody's had to enter your time, if it's not approved, Central does a mass approval so that they will get paid for that. But after payroll's through running, and it's usually that Monday evening or Tuesday morning when payroll's completely done, I'll send out an email that says, you know, please go into the compliance component and approve anyone that you haven't. And this is for auditing purposes, and also so that you can look and make sure everything was correct that Central had to approve. There could be a wrong punch or someone got paid too much or too little, and you can go in at that point and change what's on the time card for that time, and it would be changed on the next payroll if they were overpaid or underpaid. Next payroll run would correct that. You've got deleting authority as a delegating authority as a supervisor. If the supervisor is not going to be able to complete their duties, if they're going to be out for some reason, and the time and absence approver is also not there, one or the other will have to delegate authority to someone. You've got instructions on how to do that. Accepting delegation of authority as a supervisor. You've got that. Time and absence approver. This has got basically the same, a little different. Managing exceptions as a time approver. Exceptions are where you see the little, looks like a stopwatch, come up on someone's time card. Maybe they forgot to clock out one day and so it rolled into the next day and looks like they worked 24 hours. It's going to put up an exception. And you have to clear those out and approve those. And this gives you step-by-step instructions how to keep that cleared out. But you've got pretty much everything you need to know in there. If at some point you decide, even after this, when we get back on campus, and it is going to happen, we get back on campus and you forget how to get into the library or how to navigate in it. As you can see, I'm an expert at that. Not. Sorry, I had to be a little funny there. We can do it together. I believe in teamwork. So you can call me 542-5107 when we're back on campus, or you can email me while we're still at home. I'll be glad to walk through it along with you. We will do it together. Teamwork. That's, you know, everybody under auxiliary services ought to realize they're part of a big team, whether you're a manager, supervisor, employee, you know, all of us working together, we can accomplish anything. All right. That's it for me, Kathryn. I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. So we've kind of given a really high overview of the system, of the things, the functionality. One thing that Robin said triggered a thought in my mind that there's been some confusion about is the reports to supervisor and the time and absence approver. So those are two roles that have the same, as far as timekeeping is concerned, the same functionality. And that was something that that they built in for UGA because and I hate to, I always don't like it when people compare now because we've been in this system for a year and 4 months now. So, but back in Kronos, when we used Kronos, there was a much broader ability for viewing. And in some instances that was not a good thing. Some instances that was a necessity, but UGA had the got us the ability within OneUSG Connect to have, as before there was only going to be one person per employee that could see their time and approve their work time and correct errors and approve leave. And we had we got the second person. So now every employee, there are two people that can approve their time and an absence request. So, which is more than we were going to have. So we're very, very, very thankful for that. And I know that the question out there is, well, why can't we have more? Well, because it's an integrated system and it's not ours. It's the, it belongs to USG. That's not really something we can control, and the request process for making changes is intense. We'll leave it at that. But so those two roles, to clarify, those two roles are much functioning the same. So don't get, if you are the supervisor or we refer to you as a reports to, or if we refer to you as the time and absence approver, don't get hung up on that, what we're calling you. That's, we're just using the term that's in the system. It basically, they're interchangeable. You guys can, if you're one or the other, it just means there are two people per employee that can approve their time and absence request. So I'm going to go back to look through the chat and see if we had questions. We just knew there was going to be a bunch of questions. Everybody just loves the system so much that we just knew there was going to be questions. So let's see. Okay. Ooh, John, you got a lot. Okay. So first question from John, with this centralization of universities, colleges, and so forth, what has some difficulties besides what has been presented? Change. The change has been very difficult. We went from having, like I said, before all of the systems were connected, we could identify problems because before they got to, the third step of the system, we could correct it and sometimes very simply correct. Now, with it being all integrated, it is very, very tedious to make changes, and so that and change in general from our autonomy to being under the helpful hand of USG has been a big change that a lot on campus have struggled with. So one of the things, in the question 2, what have been some of the most positive? So again, like I was saying at the very beginning, it's a blessing and a curse, because some of the positives are it's taken out some of the redundancy, and that's been a huge win for some of the redundancy that the people that had to in the old way, there used to be something didn't go through until 6 or 7 different people had approved or had blessed it and pushed it through the system, and for it to go be entered into the next system, and that has been removed, and that's been a big win. How often is the USG reevaluated for streamlining? That's happening pretty often. I don't know an exact timeline of when that is, how often it's reevaluated. So we've now, all of the schools are all part of, all 26 are now fully online. It started off kind of slow and or small with some of the other schools. We were one of the bigger. We attempted to break the system, it felt like, when we went live. And so then since us, there have been 2 more, Augusta and Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech just went live in March, just basically the week that we started working from home, remote working. So bless their heart, I hope that they are going to be okay with going live. But with each new system or with each new school that went live, there were changes and things get reevaluated. So now that we're all live, I'm not sure. It's a good question, and I'll definitely do what I can to find you an answer for that. With USG, have you found or experienced these individual organizations having more autonomy? So we are really big. Does Georgia State do, or will that affect others? Okay, so basically, a lot of the systems a lot of the processes are the same. A lot of it's on us to, UGA is one of the, because we're so big, we have what they refer to as a decentralized HR partners. And that's what we are. We are decentralized. We are HR we're the liaison between, we're the go-between between the unit and central HR as far as you know, submitting all the hirings and doing orientations and things like that. And some of the smaller schools, they don't have the decentralized. So their autonomy, it feels like we have more autonomy than those schools, but it's really just because we're bigger and we just have to have more people. So we're part of the HR family, but we're not directly centralized. All right, so I'm gonna scroll. Typically, how long does it take a part-time employee to become full-time? So it depends. Shaterika, I will just say that it depends on, we don't have any that are automatically moved. If you, anytime that there's a full-time position available, apply for it. That's the fastest way to get from point A to point B. If there's, anytime there's a position open, apply for it. If you're qualified and it's available, then I encourage everybody to apply. Yes, all of the USG schools have now been converted, all 26 of them. Like I said, Georgia Tech was the last, and we'll see. We'll send our thoughts and prayers to them, because I can only imagine what going live in this new system remotely has done with that's been a pain point for them. Question from YouTube: can you view your absence balance from home, or can you submit absence requests from home? Absolutely, absolutely, and it is encouraged. We encourage everybody to enter their own absence request and to submit them. You can submit them if you know, well, you know, far enough in advance, submit them, then they can be submitted after the fact. But yes, the short answer to that is absolutely yes. You can and are encouraged to submit your absence request from home and view your absence balance from home. That training library that Robin was showing is has all the steps that you need to see those, and that is at training.onesource.uga.edu. But we'll also put it on the make sure that it's on the auxiliary connections resources page. If it's not already, we'll make sure it's there ASAP. Brett said that it's providing us more consistency in the way things are done and the data that's available, but it will take time to see the true benefits, and that is very true. The data that we're able to pull now from one place, one source, OneUSG, the ability to pull. So for a data nerd like myself, having it all in one place and not having to dig in 5 or 6 different places to get the data has been great, and is just beginning. So centralized and decentralized run differently. Yes and no. So we're just think of the decentralized as, like I said, we're a partner with them. So we run the interference between, I mean, just think about the auxiliary, there's 2,000 employees. So that's potentially 2,000 different actions that could, you know, and that's just if there's one per person that could need to be done in the system. And that would be a huge undertaking for Central, and they just don't have the manpower. So they rely on us to facilitate things in-house, if you will, to to get them, so they depend on us to get things right on our side and then give them more of a finished product that they can just go through and say, yes, this is good. No, this needs some work. So we have the same goal in mind, but we have different functions. It makes it interesting sometimes. So a question regarding vacation and sick time. In vacation is 10 hours and sick is 8. What date in the month should it be available to use or applied to your account? If you see a difference and believe you have more time, who is best to help you? So if you have concerns about that, Robin's your girl. rsp@uga.edu. You can email her, but they go in, they're not available backwards. So if you earn, the leave will be earned by the 15th. So if you work through the 15th of the month, then it's applied, but it's applied the next the next month. You can't use it until the next month. It gets really easily confused about when that leave is available for you to take. So just ask Robin. She can pull up your leave, and we can break it down by and see when it was applied and when it's available. How long do you have to be employed with UGA to apply for a new position? You don't have to be here long at all. At all. You can apply for a new position at any point. There used to be a 6-month period that you had to be in position, but that is no longer the case. So suppose you can't get into your pay stub portal, what do you do? The message says error. Yes, Sarah, high five to you for that in clearing the cookies. Clear your cache, clear your cookies. There is each browser, depending on which browser you use, there are options as far as or instructions. Each one is different. So depending on which one you use, you can click on the settings for that browser and clear your cache and cookies that way. The absolutely best way to do where you don't have to clear cache and cookies, if you're going to work smarter, not harder, as it were, is to use an incognito browser to go into the system. And the downside of that is it won't remember you for 14 days, 30 days, whatever the remembering is. See, I don't use it, so I don't know. But for incognito, it doesn't remember you, but you don't have to clear your cache and cookies. So that's a big, we want to focus specifically on jobs that are open under the auxiliary services umbrella. Where's the best place to find those? So if there's 2 ways. So right now we're sending out an email when we post new positions, and when you and we send that out to all of the employees when we post new positions. The other way is if you go on UGA Jobs, UGAJobsearch.uga.edu, I think, or is it UGA.com or UGAJobsearch.com? I think it's UGAJobsearch.com.
I added the link to the chat.
You added the link. Awesome. Thank you, Julia. If you go on there, you can specifically split out the auxiliary only positions. You can just, there's a keyword search and you can just put in auxiliary and it'll bring up auxiliary. See, if you see a discrepancy with the printed check stub to what's on the time available OneSource. So let me just say this, the so the reported time, and if you go and look at your timesheet, don't look at your timesheet as the end all be all for what you're going to get paid as far as your time is concerned, because in that it is reported time. That doesn't do anything as far as the rounding up or down depending on the time, and it does not take into account any meal deductions if there's an auto meal deduction that takes place or anything like that. So that time that is there is raw data, raw time, and that's not what's going to be reflected on your pay stub. The other piece to that, the side note to that is, like Robin was saying, as far as approving, the managers and time and absence approvers approving time on a timely basis, as often as possible, once a day would be best. Every other day would be acceptable. But once that is, then you have the option to see at the bottom of your timesheet, there's a payable time. That's the time that you'll see on your pay stub. And that's a big difference. There can be some major differences in reported time, and there will be, not can be, but there definitely will be differences in reported time versus the payable time. So we probably, let's see, you probably already answered this. Are we still collecting time even though we aren't on campus? If so, that's awesome, and thank you. And the answer is yes. We are not closed. We are still open. We're just working from a distance, and so yes, we are still actively building up your balance. So if there has to be a silver lining to this situation, we'll take that as well. In addition to, we're still receiving our paycheck, which is more than some can say, and it is a great blessing. The fact that you're still accruing your sick and vacation time right now is huge. It's huge. So if you haven't been thankful before, let that sink in for just a minute, and wow, it is incredible. So I think that we covered a lot. We tried to pack in, like I said, there's a lot of things that we do that it would take us days on days to go through and pinpoint and identify every single one of them. And so we just covered some of the high points really, and some of the frequently asked questions, if you will, frequently asked scenarios. So if you have other questions, please reach out to us. We're usually available. We may be up to our eyebrows in an issue or whatever, but we're always happy to help in any way we can. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for watching this morning. Thank you to my team. Much love to my team for their participation and to their and for their input. Could not do any of this without them. So you guys stay safe. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, and we look forward to seeing everybody as soon as we can. Bye, everybody.